Are you looking for a meaningful way to connect with your child? Coloring Conversations, the ABCs of Life, is here to help transform your quality time into something truly special. While you and your child enjoy this calming activity of coloring together, you can start important conversations. Conversations about self care, self worth, and core values that will help guide them through life. It's more than just a coloring book, it's a bonding experience. And now it's even available on Amazon. So just click on the link in the show notes and start creating these meaningful memories that will last them a lifetime. Welcome to the Real Life Momz podcast. It is time to take a break from all our to-dos and carve out this time to focus on ourselves. I'm Lisa Foster, your host, and today I'm here with fellow mom, marketing consultant, business owner, and author Trish Saemann. And we are discussing getting more clients you love. So hi Trish, welcome to the
Hi.
show.
Thank you
It,
so much for having me. I appreciate it.
well, first of all, we talked a little bit before we even got on air here, and you're just fun and full of energy. So this is like an exciting conversation for me already. But I have a business, and I know there's a lot of moms that listen that have businesses. And it's funny because I think when I started my business, I was like, get clients in the door, whatever it takes, just get them
Totally.
in. I don't care who they are, right?
Totally. Like I'll sweep the floors. Like, what do you need me to do? Like, no problem. I'm on it. Just get some revenue going, right?
Let's get some revenue. But at the end of the day, honestly, as I've been a business owner, it's like getting the clients that really are I want to attract is so much better. And
hmm
so I know you wrote a book on,
I did.
getting more clients you love. So can you tell us a little bit about your book and what inspired you to actually write it?
Sure. So the book is Get More Clients You Love, but there is like a framework to it. But there is some anecdote. And part of the reason why I was inspired to write the book is because I had a lot of clients I didn't love. I had a lot of clients who really were not good people. They were not fun to work with. They stressed me out. And I'm like, did I really just buy myself a job rather than start a new business? Like it was so hard. And I opened the book with an anecdote around Connor, who's my youngest. And we were out at the beach. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. So going to the beach is usually like a weekend activity. It's a couple hours away. So we're at the beach and I'm standing in the parking lot of like this ice cream shop that's right next to Putt Putt Golf. And I want to say Connor's maybe 7 or 8 at the time. And he's waving at me, and I'm on the phone while one of my clients is screaming his head off. Now, I don't cure cancer for a living. Like there aren't major emergencies for a living at all. Like that's I'm not saving the world or anything like that. I'm not winning any Pulitzers. None of that is happening. He was just extremely controlling. And I am a marketing expert. I run a marketing firm, and we were a white label agency for this particular client. And so a lot of his clients were also my clients. And he, in a lot of ways, saw himself as owning me. So the way that he treated me on the phone and in person and stuff like that was he was very barky. And what I later started to realize was a lot of what he used to sell people weren't buying anymore, and a lot of the digital stuff was clearly more in vogue now. Like, what is SEO? How does one do SEO? He didn't know how to answer any of that, so he needed me. And as soon as I started to figure out that he needed me more than I needed him, I'm like, okay, that kind of started the transition. But I can so distinctly remember Connor waving at me across the parking lot, and I'm ready to cry because I'm like, I'm on vacation talking to this fool on the phone when the whole reason why I started my own business was so that I could devote time to be with my kids, so that I didn't have to miss school lunch with mom or stuff like, or go on a field trip or whatever. I wanted that flexibility. And here I am trapped again with this fool. So partially it was Connor, but partially it was a big fat jerk that I used to work with. So I'm happy to report that even though he's a big fat jerk, he was also an inspiration. It was the impetus behind me getting started. So that's when I started to say, all right, I need to do something different. I need to reposition myself and get to a place where I'm actually going to start attracting the actual clients I want to work with, not just whoever comes in through the door. We were in business long enough where that should not have been the mentality I had. But you have that scarcity thing working out. You're like, oh my gosh, is it all going to go away? You know, that terrifying feeling.
Yeah, like where's the
Yeah,
next client? Where's the next
always.
paycheck?
You're always freaking out about it. Right. They
Right.
come. Yes, you
Yeah.
have to kind of get to a place where it's like they come. They do. They will show
They
up.
I so agree and resonate with that for sure because I felt like that. I want my patients to get better, right? I do cranial sacral
Sure.
work. I help people and I want them to get better. So I actually want my patients to leave me, right? But I got nervous, like, oh my God, if they leave, now who's going to fill this spot,
Right.
right? Because this is
Right.
revenue. I need to see a certain amount of patients to pay my bills, right?
Right.
And so for me, one day I just realized I was like, wait a minute, I can change this in my mind. I can say, as this patient gets better, there'll be another one waiting, right?
Right.
Because it's an abundance. I mean, there's so many people who
It is.
need the help. Why would I
That's right.
think that there's nobody left after this person
That's
goes,
right.
right?
That's right.
So
And imagine
that
if the
shifted.
work that you did actually turned it into a place where people didn't need your help anymore. Then I genuinely believe, I'm going to get a little woo here, but I genuinely believe if we got to a place where the entire world didn't need what you do anymore, then your skill and gift would be repurposed to serve another need.
Mm.
Like I genuinely feel like that pivot would come, um, it would come to you because clearly the need had been served. So then you would elevate to whatever the next need is. So, but
Yeah, I
so far
hear
as I
that.
know, everybody still needs you.
Right. But yes, there's a lot of stress in the world. I think I'm still needed. However, yeah, that is a great way to think about that. So now, okay, you had this guy. First of all, did you fire this
I
patient or
did.
did you keep? Oh my
I
gosh.
did. I did. I ended up firing him. So it wasn't that day. I had to kind of come up with, I had to do some math because he was a very big client. He was our, by himself was our biggest client because we had several smaller clients through him. So if I fired him on one, I was firing him on all. So I had to kind of do some restructuring. But we did end up firing him, and it was in a blaze of glory. It was a very weird day, but I was very relieved to get rid of him. Yes.
Yeah, and it frees up so much energy and space
Yes.
to then allow maybe
That's
that
right.
next client you love to
Oh,
come
yes.
through. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more of those like steps, all right? Somebody
Sure.
who is in this mompreneur world, what steps are they doing to get rid of those guys and
Right.
get more clients they love?
Right. So the first thing is to get more clients you love. Like that's the first thing. And then you can start to like offload because again, you want to balance your revenue. Like we're in business to make money. And for some people, starting a business is like, well, it's kind of like a hobby business. Maybe they have a trust fund. Maybe, you know, they have a wealthy spouse. Like who knows? And if that's the case, good on you. However, if your business is paying your mortgage and you really can't afford to let anybody go, then I mean, this would work for anybody, but this is who this is really for. So and I'll give you like the core part of it because there's other steps in there too that are a little bit more teased out and takes a little more time. But because if we're busy moms, I'll just cut to the chase as to like what the big ones are, right? So there's really like at its biggest part, there's 10. You know, on the mid size, I would say there's five, and then ultimately there's three. So I'll give you the three and you can run from there. So the very first one is your market. So what a lot of business owners do, and they make this big mistake, which is they say, "Oh, my widget can help anybody," and the truth is that's not true. I don't care who it is. I don't care what it is. Even if it's a toilet seat, which everybody has to use, except little babies use diapers. So they don't actually use those. They will eventually, but they don't. So you really have to start to think about like, who is my true target market? And what's their mindset? What's their pain point? What are they thinking about? What do they look like? How do they spend their time? And narrow that down and narrow it down and narrow it down. And it feels counterintuitive because you're like, there's no way. What, Trish, I have multiple clients. You don't understand. I appreciate it. I've heard this marketing advice before, and I'm telling you that you're wrong. So I'm going to give an analogy that I've used a bunch of times to help people understand the difference between I can sell to XYZ people versus I'm going to market to XYZ people. So here's my analogy. For all you moms out there, if you own a hair salon, or if you don't, the analogy still works. Let's say you own a hair salon and you've got lots of chairs, lots of ladies like me getting their hair colored, hide the gray, curl your straight hair and straighten your curly hair, or whatever it is we do, you know, to bend into whatever heteronormative we're supposed to fall into or whatever. And behind the counter, you've got hairbrushes and you've got weaves and you've got conditioner and you've got all these like hair products. And it's wonderful and it's great. And then a bald dude comes into your hair salon and says, I would like to buy some products, and picks out some products. Are you going to sell to him? Sounds like a trick question, right? I would. I'm in business. Like, fool, you want to buy all my conditioners?
Want a
Go ahead.
wig? Here's a
I ain't mad. I
wig.
ain't mad at you. I don't know what your story is. What I would never do though is spend a dime or any time marketing to bald men because they might buy some product. That's the difference between marketing and sales. So if you are a small business owner and you've got a limited budget, spoiler alert, we all do. So you want to focus all of your energies on the ideal client, because I promise you that the ones that are not in the ideal, they'll still recognize and see themselves in your messaging, which is part two, is your message. So once you've defined who your market is, your messaging becomes much easier. So think of your messaging in terms of writing an engraved invitation instead of having a flyer you stick on a car somewhere. Which one's going to feel more personal? Which one's going to have a higher perceived value? Which one's going to feel like it's more dedicated to you? So whenever you're crafting your messaging, think as though you're actually writing to one person. I know it sounds crazy, whether it's an ad or whether it's a social media post, and just say like, hey, I got to share a story with you. And imagine you're talking about your services, or you're talking about a way that you're happy about working with this particular client, or you've got this one widget and you want to tell your friend about it. That's the way you should write your posts. That's the way you should write your ads. That's the way you should write your emails. Any medium that you're choosing, you should be talking as though you're talking to one person, even if you're not. I promise you that stuff comes across so much more authentic. It gives you the opportunity to be more incisive, and it gives you the opportunity to really connect with your audience, which brings me to number three, which is choose your medium. So those are, you'll notice there's a mnemonic device here. They're all M's. If you do get a chance to read the book, they're all M's. And it's done because I want it to be quick. So first one is market, second one is message, and the third one is medium. And what I mean by medium is what media or what platform are you going to use to convey your message? So is it email? You've got time. You can be intimate. You can actually write a longer email, though I don't overly suggest very long emails if it's the first time you're reaching out to somebody. But if you're actually reaching out to somebody who's purchased from you before, give them more information. They've already agreed to hear from you. If you're writing a social media post, depends on the media. But picking your medium, you want to think about three different things. You want to think about, where is your audience? How much do they know about what you offer? And how often are they interacting with it? So if you write one tweet, which people aren't tweeting, I don't even know what you call it on X anymore. Xing? I don't know what it is. But let's call it tweeting. Tweet lasts and it's gone, right? I mean, sure, you can like look it up later if you want to like burn somebody, but for the most part, the message kind of goes away quickly. Facebook, Instagram kind of rolls through and stuff like that. Email will sit in there until a person opens it. So where you need to figure out how are you going to figure out what medium you want to be on? You want to figure out how much information they need to know. Have they ever heard of your product before? You have to educate them. So you're going to need, a tweet's not going to work. A billboard's not going to work. It's not enough information, not enough space. So you want to think about, is it a post? Is it an email? I need to educate them. Or are they familiar with your product? If that's the case, then you can have a shorter medium, like, hey, we're selling these right now. We're selling these right now. And then you might want to pick something that's shorter, like an Instagram medium or something like that. So those are the three things that you want to pay attention to. You want to pay attention to your market and figure out who your ideal, one person, if you can, one ideal client avatar. Second is write a message as though you're writing them a love letter to come to visit you at your house, like a personal invitation. And then the medium, is it in a love letter? Is it in an email? Is it a Facebook post or an Instagram post or something like that? So those are the three main ones right there that kind of like help people. Now, again, there's other pieces in there and it does get a little more complex, but for people who want to figure out how to make their marketing work fast and move fast, those are the three things you want to pay attention to. So
listening to you, I feel that I've kind of worked through this on both my podcast and probably my private practice as well.
Sure.
Finding that one ideal client and knowing what that is, so hard, right? Because yes, we're all like, and we can even say like, we want to niche down, right? Like want to niche down, like even this podcast,
right?
Like, who do I serve? I serve moms, right? But that's pretty broad,
It is.
I feel like it's a really hard step to take. Are there some ways that you would recommend finding that one?
Sure. So it's a really great question. So let's say we talk about moms, right? And we say, how about we find white, blonde, middle-aged moms? I fit that category right off the bat, right? So does that mean that all white, middle-aged, blonde women think the same way? I promise you we don't. I assure you we do not. So you might want to start thinking not just in demographic, like age might come into play. So it really depends, like what are you offering? So in your case, How many of your clients are 20 or younger? Probably not that many. So if I told you had to narrow that down to 15 years, what
Mm.
15 years would they be?
I would say 40 to 55.
Okay. So that's really your market. Everybody
Mhm.
else is a little bit on the outside.
Mhm.
So do they fit into a specific socioeconomic status? Do they fit into a certain race? Do they fit into a certain marital status? Do they fit, are they in the LGBT community? So you're going to start narrowing down, narrowing down, narrowing down. And again, it's not that you won't serve those other people, right? You're just narrowing down. Are you finding that they have a specific faith, or would this kind of thing be something that would insult their faith? Again, it really just depends, right? This, I'm not saying that's anything you do. I'm just saying these are things that you want to consider. Now, the questions I'm asking start going away from demographics and start leaning into something called psychographics. So, how do they interpret the world? How do they show up in the world? How does the world show up for them? So, I think it's funny that I get lots of eye cream ads. My girlfriend gets very offended by it. She and I are the same age. And she's like, they don't know what I need, blah, blah. I'm like, send them all to me. I don't care. Yes, my eyes, they're getting older. They've seen a lot, these poor babies. They've seen a lot. So I'm like, they're squinting at everything right now. So certainly send them all. Doesn't bother me. She gets all mad. I'm like, whatever, dude. I was like, I just wanted to make my skin feel good. So she gets very upset about it. And again, we're the same age, and not all demographics, but in many, there's overlap there. So you really want to think about, like, what's the psychology behind the people. And one of the best ways to figure that out is, what pain point are you satisfying in them? So pain point's one of those tricky ones. It's like, well, I sell ice cream. Like, nobody's in pain because they want ice cream. So the pain point is, how do they get your ice cream? How fast can they get it? Is it convenient? Like, can they get ice cream quickly? Or do they have to, like, is the parking really bad at your ice cream shop? So that's why you really need a place that's got foot traffic. Like, what are you doing to help them facilitate the purchase? So pain is like a bit of a misnomer. Like, I don't have pain because I don't have the right eye cream.
Mhm.
Like, I don't have pain around it, but I might have some, I want to look a certain way. So, like, I have a desire or something along those lines. So to get to your original question, which is, how do I narrow it down? If you find that your age demographic is really wide, make sure you're actually saying it's really wide.
Mhm.
Now, that's like the average of who you serve. That's not really what we want. We want to narrow it down and see if we can narrow it down there. Do you find that it's more men, or is it women? Or are the men that are coming because their women brought them there? So, like, that's what I find, especially in the medical space, that all the men who are getting cared for usually have a woman in their life that is actually kicking their butt and saying, I shouldn't just say woman, a spouse in their life that's like, go to the doctor. So in that case, who's the one you want to appeal to? Would you then advertise to the guys, or do you advertise to the women who are actually going to facilitate the purchase? So again, I get a little bit into the book, where it's like you have your end user, you have your influencer, and your decision maker. Sounds a little complicated, but I'll give you an example. An influencer might be a 5-year-old child kicking their feet at the aisle while you're trying to check out at the grocery store, because eye level for them is a bunch of candy, and they're like losing their ever loving mind because they want some freaking M&Ms, and mom's just trying to get through the day without killing people. I know, I've been there. And then, little Johnny's on there losing his mind. So who's actually facilitating the purchase? Now,
Yeah.
the purchase is happening from mom, but the influencer and ultimately the end user is going to be the kid. So in that case, who do you advertise to? Make no mistake, I feel it's an absolute crime that they advertising the way they advertise to children. Like, you are a monster who doesn't have children and you should be in jail. Who's making the decision? As a matter of fact, in most households, and this is not just anecdotal, this is actually empirical data. If there is a straight married couple, it's almost always the wife who's making most of the financial choices when it comes to purchases for the home or purchases for the family. So depending on what you sell, that's important. Don't worry about winning him over, win her over, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
when you're trying to narrow it down, it's really not going to end up being one person, but you want to try to get it as narrow as you can. I promise you the other ones will come.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing, who's actually purchasing the thing you want, but how do we put that into who we want? What
Great.
I want. Yeah.
Right. No, great question. So this kind of goes back a little bit, and part of it, and this is not the three cores, this is actually the get more clients you love piece of it. The first one is your mindset. You have got to come to the table knowing what you're worth. And that is probably the hardest part. And what you're worth we're all worth something. We're all worthy humans. But when it comes to actually paying for your services or your product in the beginning stages of your business, how much you can charge for those things is probably lower than it will be later. So making the transition of saying, well, it's time for me to raise my prices, it messes with you. You're like, I'm not, I'm still just that kid with braces and pimples and I'm 14 and nobody loves me. Like that, you still have that even when you're like at your peak in your life, you still like deal with that imposter syndrome. So everything I could teach you in this book, in life, or on this podcast really comes to the cornerstone of getting your head right, like your mindset. You want to understand the mindset of your clients, yes, but you want to address your own limiting beliefs and your own challenges around whether or not you're worth it. So figuring out what, and it sounds like very woo-woo manifesty, so I don't want to get too into that, but
I
figure
love
out,
woo manifesting. Yeah, go for it. I love
we
it.
love the woo, but you really want to figure out and feel it in your body. I love meditation. So feel in your body what kind of work and what kinds of clients you enjoy. So when you think about your client list right now, let's say you have 20 clients, think about the clients that you have that when you kind of see that you're going to see them that day. And I'm assuming this from a service perspective, we can talk about product in a minute, but from a service perspective, if you see them on your calendar and you're kind of like, oh, I'm glad I'm gonna see Lisa today. Like they get excited about it, right? Or you're like, you see their name show up on your phone and you're like, I have to study myself before I answer them. That lives in you. Like you can feel that. So you start to kind of outline what are the qualities that my best clients have. And you start to look for common ground. It's not just disposition, and it's not just budget, and it's not just how much they need you. It's also just how willing they are to interact with you. How willing are they to trust you? How willing are they to hear what you have to say, even if there's pushback? And how willing are they to respect you? And then when you start to look at all of that, kind of put these little qualities that, again, I'm just throwing out my own qualities here, but write down the qualities that you want. They don't want to talk to me for 10 years. Like some people are like more introverted. They don't want a client that's going to call them and like tell them all their problems or whatever. They want like appropriate correspondence, let's just say. Or they want to be paid on time. They want to be paid quickly. They want to be paid in advance. So look at all of your clients and start to like tick off the boxes of all the things that you like about that client. Then figure out what service or product it is that you're offering them. And then start to see, all right, here are my top 5 clients. Here are the top 5 things that I offer. Where's the overlap? It sounds so simple when you think about it, right? Like where is the overlap? And you're going to start to see them before they even become a client. You're going to be able to start picking them out. The vibe is there because your vibe is all over the place. Again, getting with the woo, your vibe's all over the place. This is why you're attracting this hot mess. As soon as you get lined up with who it is that you really want to work with, it's not just budget, it's not just service offering, it's vibe. So you start to kind of figure out, all right, well, this is a group of people with whom I can have a great relationship and with whom I can do a lot of great work, not just for me, but for them. They'll start to seek you out. It sounds crazy, but it's true. They'll start to seek you out. But let's speak just brass tacks here. So think about it almost in terms of like a spreadsheet. Start having your X axis and your Y axis. Write down all the qualities that you want, and then write down the services that you offer and figure out which clients fit on that X and Y axis and how many of them are kind of in a cluster. Now you know who your ideal client is from a more clients you love standpoint. So like that's a little bit on the reverse. It's so what's even more fun, and this does happen too, is when you start to figure out that now you really know how to talk to them. You don't have to like cater to like these other kinds of clients that are really not a good fit. They're not in the wheelhouse, if you will. So it becomes really fun. You really can narrow them down. And then again, writing your messaging becomes really easy. Your marketing becomes more efficient. And I've seen this happen over and over and over. I used to teach my book. It used to be a course. And I had coaching students and we would put them through this whole exercise. And they would start to be like, I found them. It's like kind of like bees to a hive. Like they recognize that this is where they belong, kind of a thing. So yeah, so that's where the clients you love component of it. You really start to figure out the clients you don't love at first. And those are pretty easy, especially if you have clients that really suck. Like you can tell pretty fast, like they're abusive, they don't pay on time, they're running me around like crazy. They hate everything I do, like that kind of stuff. They're pretty easy to get rid of. Then you start to see the ones that are like, well, they're not my vibe, but they're nice people. Or Well, they're just a little needy and they email me 42 times a day. Once you start really getting down, you recognize that energy is as much a currency as it is money and time. So getting clients you love comes down to mindset, and it also starts to come down to like really looking at the empirical data of who feels good to work with, who can I do good work for, who actually genuinely needs my service, who's willing enough to kind of trust me, who's trainable in how I do what I do, and letting them kind of like work with the way I do it. And then find that cluster and write all of your messaging, figure out where they spend their time, that's your medium, and write your messaging into that medium, and you'll start attracting. Not only that, the birds of a feather flock together. So they're going to have other people that are going to refer to you as well. They're going to refer you over. So it's the whole thing starts to really bring you into alignment where you start to have energy for your family, for your business, and hold the phone, ladies, but actually for yourself. Who knew? Right? So, yeah.
100%. Like, I love every piece of that so much. I feel like when I first started my business, I was somebody who was just taking everybody, worried I
Right.
wouldn't have another patient if I let one go. And years later, I finally am at the point where I do look at my schedule and I love every single person on there. I don't have one
Right.
person that I am not excited, actually physically excited to see. And it's so right about that energy because it becomes your network. I mean, there's word of mouth, what
That's right.
practitioners they're working for, then they'll refer. And it's just somehow this nice, harmonious thing that happens that
Mm-hmm.
you have created this place that, like, I love going to work, probably too
Mm-hmm.
much, I'll be honest. I really love my clients. I have so much energy. I don't come home drained. I come
Right.
home and I'm still happy and I don't feel like I worked
That's
hours
right.
and hours and hours and I'm just exhausted and all I can do is crawl into bed. I
Yeah.
feel energized by my clients, not drained. So it's like
Right.
it's
No,
amazing.
it's a huge thing.
So what do you think is the biggest mistake that business owners make?
I would say something that's actually not marketing related. I would say not managing your cash flow. I would say that's probably the biggest mistake that people run into. Know your numbers, manage your cash flow, um, and hire a really good accountant. That's the number one. I would say everything else. If you don't manage your cash flow, you don't have a business. Um, I would say from a marketing perspective, though, is to trying to be all things to all people. Kind of comes back to what I said earlier. Figure out where your energy is going to be best spent, figure out where your clients are going to be, figure out what you can afford and what kind of message you need to throw out there. Stop trying to be everywhere all at once. If you're a small business and you're really struggling to get traction and you're really struggling to like scale, I'm going to say something that's going to make you so mad, but it's true, which is pick one service and one client avatar that you're targeting with that service, one medium and one message to share. One. And you're gonna be like, no, I'm gonna lose all the clients. You're not. You're not, I promise. McDonald's started with burgers and now
Yeah.
they sell chicken and salad and whatever else because they got their market and then expanded. People start with the expansion and then don't understand why people don't know what to do. So I would say the biggest mistake from a marketing perspective that business owners make is trying to be all things to all people. You're, it's a muddled, unclear message. Don't do that. But the real number one is manage your cash flow.
When I started, I decided to do cranial psychotherapy. I'm a physical therapist. I've been a pediatric physical therapist. And I was like, you know what? What I love, if I really just want to put it out there, I love cranial sacral work. But when you're doing your training, it's like people do a lot of things. They have this technique and that technique and
Right.
whatever. And I'm just like, I just like cranial sacral. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to show up and that's who I am. If you come
That's
to my
right.
office, you know exactly what you're getting. And one person actually asked me recently, they're like, oh, do you do anything else? I'm like, nope.
Sure
Like,
don't.
I do cranial psychotherapy. If you're coming here, that's what you want. And they're like, great. You know, it's like they know exactly what they're getting. And I
That's
really
right.
feel like that actually has helped my business because if they're looking for a cranial psychotherapist and they look online and it has like Reiki and cranial psychotherapy, massage, and all these things, they
Right.
don't know what they're getting, you know? But for me, it's one choice only. And so it's simple. I keep
It is.
everything
And
very
Lisa, I
simple.
think your positioning on that is perfect. Like it really is brilliant because everybody now knows not only who to go to, but they also know how to refer for you. Like it's very straightforward. So it really is the smartest way to go about it. So good on you there, sister. You did a good job. That's
Yeah.
exactly what you should have done. And you love it too. So I mean, bonus right there,
And
right?
I
That's the
love
whole
it, but
point.
initially felt very insecure about it because, you compare yourself. So I say, like, take away the comparison, stay with what
That's
you
right.
love, and don't make it confusing for others who are trying
That's
to
right.
find you, right?
That's right. They're begging, they need you. They're desperate. And believe it or not, and I know you, anyone who's listening, I'm sure you've probably heard this before. There are people who are worse at what you do, making more than you are. Be clear about what you do. I promise you, your little nest egg is out there. Just be clear about what you offer and stop trying to be something to everybody, because then you're nothing to nobody.
Yeah,
So,
perfectly said. So, from your book or in
mhm,
life and from your
right.
experience, okay, what is your favorite golden nugget that every single business owner needs to know?
It's going to sound a little like I'm echoing what I said a moment ago, but don't try to be perfect. Show up authentically, because again, from a clients you love standpoint, they'll resonate with that too. We are very focused on being polished, and we're very focused on driving the right car and showing up in the right way. And what's interesting is that the right car is different for somebody else. And things didn't really lock in until I really just stripped it down and was more honest, not with just the world, but the honest with myself. Like, okay, there are spaces that I absolutely kick ass. Like, I am awesome at this. And there are spaces where I am getting my ass kicked. Like, it's completely different. It's the complete opposite. So I think that there's intimacy in failure. I think there's intimacy in mistakes. And intimacy is where true relationships, professionally and otherwise, can grow. Having authentic communication with someone is another way that you'll get referred more easily, because people be like, I know exactly who you need, or I know exactly who you don't. They're not your vibe. You don't want them. So I would say, like, and again, I guess this is more of a life nugget, but all very intermeshed. Be honest, be authentic, and don't strive for perfection, because not only is it imperfect, is it inauthentic? It's unachievable, and it alienates you. It keeps you from having connection. I would say that that's probably the biggest nugget, is just show up as yourself. Your people will find you, and the ones that don't like you, they weren't going to like you no matter what you did. So just let it be. So I would say
Totally.
that's probably it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a huge nugget. I love that nugget. I'm going to keep that nugget. It's great.
It's a good nugget.
What message would you like the listeners to take away today?
I would say that the most core part of it would be the market message medium, for like the business owners. Don't spend all of your money on marketing. Try to narrow your focus as much as you can, see how well that does, and expand from there. Don't start from a place of expansion. Think an inch wide and a mile deep. Like, figure out, how far can I go with this? And then once you figure out what works and you've narrowed it down, you didn't spend all of your money, and you're like, these are the elements that work, then expand and expand and expand. And then as far as like the life piece of it is concerned, like I said, you've got to get your head right. I think that keeping your mind healthy and strong, and if that means more time outside, less time on screen, finding podcasts like this that nurture your soul and help you learn something, help you feel connected, that stuff's all great. It's all good for your mindset. So I would say, like, the big takeaway is recognize that your mindset, in the absence of the a right or curated or a healthy, well exercised mindset, something that you're taking care of actively, everything else we talk about is not really going to fall in line.
So, where can the listeners find you?
Under a rock somewhere, I'm sure. I'm living under a rock somewhere. Okay, so let's see. I'm on Instagram. And I do respond to my messages, which is fun because I love getting my messages. So my Instagram is Dish with Trish, and I'll spell it. It's DISHWITRISH. So Dish with Trish. Also, I'm taking a page out of Lisa's book. So March of 2025, I'm launching a podcast with two of my colleagues. So it's called Breaking Even Better. And it's a story about tips and tricks and tales from running a business. And there are lots of good tips, lots of good tricks. I've got my girls, Brenda and Carolina. They do different things than I do, so they bring a different flavor. They also have a different world perspective, one of whom is an immigrant and a Latina, and the other woman is a Black woman. So they show up in the world differently. The world shows up differently for them. So it's lots of different perspectives, which I love. And we also have completely sucked and screwed things up sometimes. So we tell those stories too. but we're also very successful and award winning. And, Caroline is an author. Both Caroline and Brenda have won Hall of Fame. Like there's all kinds of stuff with them too. So that's Breaking Even Better. That'll launch March 11th, 2025, which is also Caroline's birthday. And then my company is Go Beyond SEO. So anybody needs help or consults for that. And you're welcome to go on Amazon and buy my book, which is, of course, Get More Clients You Love. So there it is. I think that's all my things.
Thank you so much for just talking to me so much about everything, about getting more clients you love. It was so insightful and I learned a lot. And I also learned that I feel like I'm actually in a good place. So that's really
You
great.
are. It's totally the vibe is there, girl. 100%. Like you are, and I love that you have like this is what I do. This is what I love to do, and this is and people are better after they've been with me. Like who can say that? Not everybody gets the opportunity to be like, yes, I just walk around and I heal people. I'm their fairy godmother. Like it's wonderful. Like you do a wonderful thing. So I think it's awesome.
Well, thank you for joining me today.
I appreciate you, Lisa. Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. This was such a lovely conversation with Trish. She taught us so much. And if you want to connect with her, just click on the link in the show notes. Make sure you check out her book, Get More Clients You Love, and also check out her new podcast that just released. It should be amazing with more tips and stories, both good and bad from business. And remember to keep carving out time for yourself and make sure you're putting yourself on top of your to-do list.